A new round of the playoffs is here, and already Team Penske is on its game. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the Magic Miles they like to call it. A flat 1 mile track that could provide some very entertaining racing with the restarts. 3 and 4 wide, sometimes even 5 wide if there's enough room in those corners. But a lot of jockeying for position, a lot of battles on the racetrack, and a little bit of teammate turmoil out there. But one driver did not have any problems yesterday with a fast car in the long runs and punching his ticket to the next round of the playoffs. Let's get into all that happened yesterday at the Magic Mile. Number 1. Domination by Penske. What a day for Ryan Blaney and the number 12 team as they pick up a win, winning yesterday's Mobil 301 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, locking Ryan Blaney into the next round of the playoffs with the win yesterday. And he had to hold off Josh Berry, William Byron, Joey Logano, and Chase Elliott for the victory. And what a great start to this round of the playoffs for Ryan Blaney to win the race. After a rough start in the opening race of the round of 16 with a spin at Darlington, which he really wasn't able to recover from, he had 2 really good results the following few races at Gateway and last weekend at Bristol, and carried over into this week. And from the beginning of the weekend, the 12 team of Ryan Blaney, they were on their game. They had great pace when it came to race speed and practice, and he qualified on the outside pole of his teammate Joey Logano for the start of the race. Now, when the green flag dropped, he actually lost a couple of spots in the process, but when we got into a long green flag run, he started to pick them off one by one, and then chased down his teammate Joey Logano there, and was able to get by him and hold him off until we had a caution towards the end of the first stage. A lot of cars elected to come to pit road. Blaney was one of them, and he was able to get the restart and being in front of his teammate, the 22, and got the stage win to give him another bonus point in case something were to happen the rest of the race. But for the most part, again, the 12-car Blaney, they had good drive position all day long, and they were very fast on the long runs. Now, of course, he would have to challenge his teammate, Joey Logano, again for part of the race, especially when Joey 2-car had the lead. But when Blaney got in front, there was just no holding him back. I mean, he could just take off and drive away, and nobody else had anything from him. I mean, the pace that the number 12 team and his crew chief Jonathan Hausler brought, amazing job by the 12 team all around. Now, they had their pit stop in the final stage under green flag conditions, and then we had a caution come out for Cody Ware, who ironically was that caution towards the end of the first stage instead of a little one-lap dash. Ware brought the last caution trying to retaliate Austin Dillon, and it didn't work out well, let me tell you. But Ryan Blaney, a lot of the rest of the field came down pit road for a final set of fresh tires, knowing that this would be probably the last stint all the way to the end as long as there were no yellows. Now, he did have to work by Josh Berry and Chase Elliott, who both stayed out because they were one of the last to pit in that green flag pit stop sequence, but it was no trouble at all for Ryan Blaney. He made short work of both of those guys, and even though he got the lead, he wasn't able to really drive away from Josh Berry in the 21 car. They were hounding him those last 15 laps of the race until with about 13 to go, the 21 made a mistake, and Blaney knew right then and there, as long as I don't make that mistake, what he did behind me, I'm A-okay all the way to the checkered flag, and that he was. A big win for Ryan Blaney, who last weekend, his nephew kind of accidentally got on the radio and said, "I want you to bring home the checkered flag for me, Uncle." Well, he wasn't able to do it last weekend, but yesterday, a week later, he was able to make up for it. And of course, the tradition that Ryan Blaney likes to do every time he wins a race, picks out a young fan wearing his shirt and his merchandise so he could give the checkered flag to. Well, I think the official, somebody found a fan right before Blaney was trying to look through the crowd to see who could want the checkered flag that was wearing his gear as a young fan. Somebody already got it, so he's like, okay, that's a little quick thing not to worry about. But a really good showing yesterday by Blaney and the 12 team. And if you wanted to start to your run to try to win a championship, you couldn't have picked a better time than yesterday to do that, especially with a couple of good tracks coming up for him. Not just the rest of this round, but the round of 8 favors a guy like Ryan Blaney. He's good at Las Vegas. He's so good at Talladega when he has luck on his side. And we all know what the last 2 years of the fall at Martinsville have been for him. Winner, winner. And of course, the first go-round, winner, the following week, wins the championship in Phoenix. Last year, he was runner-up. Could he turn it around this year and be a 2-time Cup Series champion? That remains to be seen, but I definitely think that momentum is on Ryan Blaney's side. Now, you remember earlier in the year, Ryan Blaney had fast cars, but didn't have the finishes. And having DNF after DNF after DNF, some of it mechanical-wise, some of it wasn't exactly their fault getting caught up in other people's misfortunes. But once he got that win at Nashville in the summer, It kind of helped get some momentum on the 12-team side, and they were really good to close out the rest of the regular season, including that win with a 13th to first charge in the last 2 laps of the regular season finale at Daytona. It blows my mind away how he was able to pull that off. And in these playoffs so far, he looks like one of the most consistent cars, and if he can keep this consistency, he could be back at Phoenix for the 3rd year in a row, and this time he could maybe have his 2nd Cup Series championship. But a big congratulations to Ryan Blaney and the 12th team on their sterling performance yesterday at New Hampshire. Number 2, from spin to near win. If there's one guy you got to feel very happy for, aside from Ryan Blaney after the checker flag yesterday, it was Josh Berry and the Wood brothers in the 21 car finishing in 2nd place. After a horrendous playoff round, last 3 races, where he finished last in every single one of them due to wreck, and mechanical issue that got up with rubber got inside the brakes and pretty much cooked his right side and ended his night. It was a playoff to forget for Josh Berry, those first 3 races in the round of 16 that ultimately eliminated him from the playoffs. Yesterday was a great way to bounce back. He qualified up inside the top 5, and at a track where, for a guy that has run on the shorter tracks from his modified days, you would expect Josh Berry to be up the front no matter what, and by golly, did they have a great car yesterday. Now, there was a problem in the race during the early part of the 2nd stage where he was racing on the outside of Shane Van Gisbergen for position around the top 10 around turns 1 and 2, and then SVG got a little loose on the inside, got into Berry, and sent the 21 car around. Thankfully, nobody hit him. He didn't get hit by anybody, but it put him behind in a bind because they had to put on a new set of tires and try to rebound from that. Well, thankfully they did. They were able to pick their way through the field. I mean, that 21 car was hooked up. Remember, they have an alliance with Team Penske, so it doesn't surprise me to see this guy have as good as a day as the Penske cars did. Berry was able to charge his way back up inside the top 10 by the end of the 2nd stage, and then by the time we got to the final stage, he got back up inside the top 5, and it seemed like he was going to probably finish there at the end of the race. But when that last caution came out, because he was one of the last cars to pit under that green flag pit stop sequence, he stayed out along with the 9 car of Chase Elliott. Berry got a good launch on the restart, but those tires that Blaney had right behind him, he was not going to be able to hold him off for long. Blaney got by the 21, but the 21 still kept tight with the 12 car in those last couple laps of the race. He kept hounding him. He was almost 2 tenths behind him with about 50 laps to go. I'm thinking, if Berry gets to the bumper of this 12 car, he's going to put a bump and run to him and move him out of the way, because Berry would love to try to end the year strong and get another win. And he kept trying, but with the 13 laps to go going into turn 3, he overshot the corner, went way high, and I knew right then and there it was game over. There's no way he can recover from that unless if Blaney made the same mistake. But Ryan Blaney didn't, and Josh Berry had to settle for a 2nd place result. But for Josh Berry and the 21 team, Miles Stanley, this was a good finish and a good way to push aside the horrendous round of 16 that those guys had. I mean, they got to feel positive about the year in general. Even though there have been not a lot of good moments, they did win a race this year at Las Vegas. They made the playoffs. And even though they got bounced early on, they learned from that and move on to the following round. And they open it up with a 2nd place result, nearly winning the race. You got to be proud of Josh Berry and that 21 team. If they can keep this momentum going for the end of the season to finish strong, hopefully there'll be more good results, good consistency, and better things to come for this team next year in 2026. But a great job yesterday by Josh Berry to overcome a spin to nearly winning the race. Number 3, teammate turmoil. Yesterday was not a good day to be Joe Gibbs at Joe Gibbs Racing. Why do I say that? Because 2 of their guys got into it in the early part of the 2nd stage, and they were Denny Hamlin, a playoff driver, and Joe Gibbs' grandson, Ty Gibbs. It was a really rough time to be fans of either one of those guys yesterday. So let me break down what happened with those 2 yesterday. In the early part of the 2nd stage, Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs are racing for position outside the top 10. And quite frankly, let me say this quickly, Toyota did not have it yesterday, folks, which just shocks me because this is a track they've been so good at the past. I expected them to be contenders for the win. None of the Toyotas had race-winning pace yesterday like those Penske Fords. But Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs are just battling for position outside the top 10. But Denny Hamlin was getting frustrated on the radio with how Ty Gibbs was racing him, saying, what the bleep is he doing? I'm not going to say what he actually said. I know what he said, but I'm not going to say it. Denny Hamlin was just not happy with the way Ty Gibbs was racing and pretty much telling Ty, I'm faster than you, move out of my way. Well, if you're faster than him, Denny, why aren't you getting by him? But also to Ty Gibbs, you're racing hard with a guy who's not only your teammate, but is a playoff driver. I mean, can't you give a guy a little bit of room? And plus, it's in the top 15. If this was for the top 5, top 10, I can understand Ty Gibbs wanting to defend the position. But outside the top 10 at this point of the race, you got to probably let Denny Hamlin go and try to see what he could do going forward. Well, Ty Gibbs kept racing him hard side by side. They actually banged doors at times. And then on lap 111, going into turn number 1, Hamlin slid the line behind Ty Gibbs and then put the bumper to Ty Gibbs, hoping to move him a little higher up out of the groove so Hamlin could take the position. Well, what happened was that tap sent Ty Gibbs around into the outside wall and knocking him effectively out of contention for a solid result. And it was, Ty Gibbs is not happy to the point where he was just sitting there under yellow with the tow truck was picking him up. He put his hand out the window and gave a sarcastic thumbs up to Denny Hamlin saying, "Good job, some teammate you are." Well, it didn't get better for Ty Gibbs the rest of the race. They went back to the garage, fixed the damage, got back out there, but the towing broke in the right rear, so they decided to call it quits for the day. And Ty Gibbs, when asked about the incident, he was brushing it off. He really didn't want to talk about it, saying, we had good speed in our car, and we'll get looking forward to go to try to win next weekend at Kansas. So he didn't really want to talk about what happened. Now, as for Denny Hamlin, it wasn't really, in general, a really solid day for him. I mean, he ran around the top 10 to 15 for most of the race, but it wasn't a race-winning car, which baffles me because Denny Hamlin has normally been really good at this racetrack. And yesterday he ended up finishing in 12th spot. I guess they had a really bad restart, that final restart of the race that dropped him back to 15th, and they had to pick up a few more spots. But in general, it wasn't a really good result for Denny Hamlin. And when he was asked about the incident post-race, he said, "I'm sorry that I got into him." I mean, it wasn't intentional, folks. Let's reiterate. That was tapped by Denny Hamlin. I don't think it meant to be intentional, but he didn't expect the 54 to go around after he applied that slight tap. And it wasn't really a hard hit. It wasn't like he hit him hard to send him around. It was a slight tap. And unfortunately, that slight tap upset the 54, and he went around, and Denny Hamlin carries on. But, I mean, I understand, Denny Hamlin didn't mean to do it, but it leaves a little bit of a black eye on Joe Gibbs racing. He was, talked to Joe Gibbs and Chris Gabehart, the team director, about it post-race, about the situation, and he, kind of brushed it off as well in his post-race interview. He kind of didn't really want to talk about it as much. What my perspective is about this incident yesterday, you got to learn how to race the guys that are in the playoffs with respect. It doesn't mean you can't stop being aggressive, but you have to find a way to race those competitors properly on the racetrack that are still in the middle of a championship battle. For Ty Gibbs, he didn't even make the playoffs. Denny Hamlin's still alive to try to win this championship as long as nothing bad happens to him in these upcoming 2 races in this round of 12. Well, Denny Hamlin, I can understand the frustration with you, not being, Ty Gibbs holding you up, but if you're fast, you got to try to find a way to get by him. And in Ty Gibbs' position, you're not in the playoffs, and you're kind of racing a guy that's trying to win a championship really, really hard, and it's not even inside the top 5, top 10. Move over, let him go by, and try to see if you can rebound later and try to make a pass on him. So it's really, really tough to grasp this entire situation yesterday. I mean, other than Blaney's win, this was the biggest talking point of the race yesterday. I mean, how's this happen going forward? Joe Gibbs says it's on the drivers to settle out, but Denny Hamlin says, the team management kind of needs to step up and kind of, tell us what we need to do to race properly on the racetrack without consequences. So it sounds like both sides are a little bit, divided about how this whole thing should be settled out. My perspective is let the driver settle it out. Racing conduct. If you race each other with respect, there won't be any problems. But if things get a little too much, then it may be time for management to step in and say enough is enough. But a really tough day yesterday for Joe Gibbs watching his 2 cars, his grandson and Ty Gibbs, and his veteran driver and Denny Hamlin getting together on the track that had Gibbs into the wall and Hamlin carrying on for the rest of the race, but not a good result. A tough day for those 2 drivers. Number 4, bounce back for Team Hendrick. Yesterday was a much-needed good result for the 3 Hendrick cars still remaining in the playoffs. Yesterday, all finishing inside the top 7 to kick off this new round of the playoffs, with William Byron coming home in 3rd place, Chase Elliott with a 5th place result, and Kyle Larson with a 7th place result. Now, the reason why I say this was a good, needed day for Hendrick Motorsports at this track in particular, they have struggled here in the past. They haven't really had cars capable of winning, let alone finishing inside the top 5, top 10, aside from, 3 years ago when Chase Elliott finished runner-up to Christopher Bell. This Hendrick team has struggled at this track the last couple of years, and I'm thinking, this team used to be really good here going back to the days of Jeff Gordon in the 90s, Jimmy Johnson in the 2010s, and even when they had Dale Jr. and Casey Kane, it just seemed like they lost the spark at New Hampshire as far as their competitive edge, and where did it go? But yesterday, it looks like they were able to get some of it back with solid results by all 3 of their playoff drivers. Starting with William Byron, he ran top 5, top 10 pretty much the entire day. I don't think he fell outside the top 10 once. They had good pace in the car. They were able to keep in touch with the Penske guys and some of the other guys that were running up at the front of the pack for most of the race. They didn't have race-winning speed, but they certainly had top 5, 6, 7 speed to stay up there all day long, gain a lot of stage points, and give them a comfortable cushion heading into Kansas. They sit at least 40-plus points above the cutoff heading into Kansas. So no matter what happens next week, I think the 24 team should feel pretty good about themselves before we get ready to head into the Roval, which is the last race of the round of 12. And it was a much-needed result for Byron and the 24 team because this is the first time in almost a month that Byron's finished inside the top 10. I did not know that until I heard it in the radio shows or even post-race interviews yesterday, that was Byron's first top 10 since, I think, early August. That is crazy, considering this guy won the regular season championship, that it had to wait this long for his first top 10 in quite some time. But a much-needed top 10 with a third-place result for William Byron in the 2014. Then we go to Chase Elliott, who, unlike Ryan Blaney, also with Ryan Blaney and Josh Berry, deserves a Driver of the Day award. And the reason why I say that is because Chase Elliott started yesterday's race in 27th spot. And I'm going to say this right now. They have got to figure out how to qualify better because it's been their Achilles heel the entire season and through these playoffs. They haven't qualified well, which has led them to poor performances in some of these races, aside from Gateway, where they're able to charge up on long runs and track position, and he got himself a podium finish in 3rd spot. Yesterday, Elliott started 27th, actually dropped back 6 spots at the start of the race because he got put for wide to 33rd, but then he slowly worked his way through the field because in long run pace, based off of practice, Chase Elliott had a good long-run car, and by golly, did that long-run car kick in yesterday. He was able to fight his way inside the top 20 by the end of the first stage. Then in the second stage, hovered around the top 15, then got inside the top 10 towards the closing laps of stage 2, where he finished 7th and got 4 stage points, which the goal for those guys pretty much at the start of the race where they started, if we can get some stage points and a solid result, it's a good day. And then we get into the final stage. He got up inside the top 5 for a little bit, then fell back to 7th, and he was one of the last cars to pit under green flag pit stops in the final stage until that caution came out, and Alan Gustin said, we've got fresher tires. I know that these guys will have better tires than us, but let's stay out because I feel like that track position and the way that the tires haven't really fallen off for a lot of the race, they'll be able to hang up there the rest of the race, and they did just that, coming home with a 5th place result. Now, they didn't gain a ton of points over the cutoff line, but they're sitting in better position aside from some of the other guys and where they finished yesterday. A really good result from Chase Elliott, charging from 27th up to 5th. And Kyle Larson with a 7th place result. I mean, you probably wouldn't think that's a really good result for Kyle Larson standards, but given how the round of 16 went for him, I'd say they also will take this one like it was a win. And they, too, also yesterday had a very good race car. They were actually even able to get up front and lead a couple of laps yesterday, passing Chase Briscoe, who was on a differing strategy, taking 2 tires, entering a caution, and gaining track position. Larson was able to get by him. Then Larson got passed by Joey Logano a couple laps later. But seeing the 5 car back up front and running up front for a lot of the race, it's just good for the team and giving them a good shot in the arm, and they've needed that because they've been in a rough patch since the summer, and I'm thinking, where is Kyle Larson's competitive edge? Well, yesterday looked like he gained some of it back with the way he was able to run up front and finish up there. So it was a good day for the 5 team. And these 300 drivers, if they could keep good results going and heading into Kansas, where Larson and Elliott were 2 of the fastest cars in the spring, if those 2 can replicate that success, as well as William Byron, it could be a really good day for Hendrick Motorsports next weekend, carrying into the Roval, where all 3 have been really good at in the past, and if they can all survive that day and have no new winner behind, those 3 could find themselves inside the round of 8, which remains to be seen. But yesterday, a much-needed day for the 300 drivers alive in the playoffs, all finishing inside the top 7. And number 5, side-by-side battles all day long. Yesterday's racing at New Hampshire, folks, was absolutely awesome. Really good competitive racing from start all the way to the finish of the race. I mean, these restarts in New Hampshire, they don't get enough love. You see these guys 3, 4, 5 wide sometimes if they have the opportunity, racing that way in the corners, 3 wide even off of turn 4, off of turn 2, for about 3 to 5 consecutive laps. Had me on the edge of my seat yesterday watching these guys battle it out. And there were passes that were made on the shorter runs and even on the long runs yesterday. I mean, there was a lot of good side-by-side racing, which we really haven't seen with this next-gen car at this track in particular. I mean, it's not a short track, but it kind of feels like that the next-gen car has had its, rough edge as far as how it's been able to adapt to this track and put on a good racing product, not only for the drivers to showcase the racing talent out there with this car on this track, but also entertain the fans. And yesterday, I think the fans got themselves a really good showing of racing action. Something I don't think we've seen at this track since probably 2020 during COVID year, which was the, Gen 6 car era. We had a really good race that year. Yesterday's race was by far, I think, the best that we've had at New Hampshire in quite some time. Now, the end of the race last year, seeing these guys run in the rain was pretty fun, but it was, a little bit, half and half. Some liked it, some didn't. Yesterday's racing, without any traction compound put on the racetrack, and even though there wasn't a lot of tire wear, you could see sometimes on the longer runs that tires meant something for some of these guys versus, guys on fresher tires. Guys on fresher tires would last a little bit longer than the guys on older tires. But once again, what Josh Berry and Chase Elliott did at the end of the race, staying out on those relatively, slightly older tires compared to everybody else and coming away with top 5 finishes, you got to be proud of that performance of those guys rolling the dice. But again, the racing in general yesterday at New Hampshire, by far the best we've seen in quite some time, and I really enjoyed it. It's just good to see, the magic of racing at New Hampshire back in that race yesterday. Something that we haven't had in a while, but I thoroughly enjoyed that showing yesterday. Also want to give a quick shout out to future NASCAR Hall of Famer Kurt Busch, who gave the command to start engines yesterday, showing some enthusiasm. Of course, a 3-time winner in New Hampshire, sweeping both of the races in 04, which was the year he won the championship, and he won the rain shortened race back in 2008 at this track. So it was really cool to see Kurt Busch get the command to start engines. Unfortunately for his little brother Kyle Busch, yesterday was a race to forget. I mean, from the start of the race, he fell back to almost the next to last car in the running order. Something is really wrong with this team. And of course, it doesn't end there. They fell a lap down, then they got their lap back on the wave around, but they got caught up in a wreck off of turn 2 midway through the second stage when Brad Keselowski and Shane Van Gisbergen got together and went around the pack. Kyle Busch got involved and ran wounded the rest of the race. I mean, it's just, things are not going well with the 8 team. They have to blow it up after this year. It sounds like Randall Burnett's out the door. In my opinion, if you want to know what could fix Kyle Busch in this 8 team, get Rodney Childers. This guy doesn't have a job right now. He's been one of the best crew chiefs in NASCAR, and he's just been on, rough patches as far as teams the last few years since Kevin Harvick retired. You put Rodney Childers on Kyle Busch's pit box, it could, I'm not saying will immediately, it could start to make things better. But that's what I'm going to say about that. Just a rough day yesterday for Kyle Busch. Now we are off to Kansas Speedway for the second race in the round of 12. This mile-and-a-half track is one of the best tracks that we go to on the circuit. The restarts, the side-by-side action, the long-run speed, tire wear, maybe even fuel mileage coming into play. We're going to have a fun show next Sunday. I guarantee you that. These guys will be battling for the best position possible on the track with a win at stake because you do not want to have to go into the Roval in a must-win situation. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. Can Hendrick gain back the speed that they had from earlier this year at Kansas next week? Can Team Penske continue the run that they've been on since yesterday? Or will Toyota turn around after a pretty rough race yesterday? We shall see. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and congrats once again to Ryan Blaney and the 12 team on their win at New Hampshire. They're on to the round of 8. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!